Hello, everyone. I am your host, Solar Equim, and welcome to the Coliseum, where we support free speech over the censorship of ideas. Today, I have the utmost privilege of hosting this debate between the one and only Danikin and the one and only Brogy on the issue of private property versus the needs of the public. This preposition tonight will be, quote, the needs of the public outweigh the needs of the private property. Period, quote. Brogy is representing the pro of this argument while Danikin is arguing against it. We will be discussing the reasons and justifications for both sides of the claims and see if there's any possibility for a solution or ultimatum in this debate. A reminder to the audience that both speakers consensually agreed to participate in this debate and face each other on the topic. If you are interested yourself, the viewer, in being part of any of these debates, feel free to contact myself at Solar Equim. You can find me on Twitter and on Discord and on YouTube. This debate is structured as a Lincoln Douglas style, which means it is more formalized, where both members would have times. A reminder to both people debating tonight, if you cut off your opponent at any point when it's not your given time, first would be a warning, second time is going to be point deduction in this tournament. The tournament will be reviewed by 5 panel judges who will make a decision who goes on to the next round. With that out of the way, we'll go ahead and do introductions, with the positive, Brogy, going first. Brogy, you care to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Brogy. I do political commentary on Twitch and starting to make some YouTube content. Hoping to do really well in this and hoping to make it to the next round.
Hey, Brogy, where can we find you else by your @ if you don't mind?
So my @ is Brogy6515, and that is on Twitch, Kick, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, literally everything.
Nice. All right. And then we're moving over to our opponent who's going to be arguing the negative of this position, Danikin. Danikin, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel. I've been debating for about 7 years in Lincoln Douglas. I haven't debated formally since Sola invited me to this tournament. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity and looking forward to insightful conversation. So that's about it. I'm currently located in Seattle, Washington, and I enjoy snowboarding as well as gaming. I like to game.
Nice. Do you do any content creation yourself? Could your audience find you anywhere else?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Daniel_GUER17.
All right. Sounds good. And with that, we're going to get on the way with our debate. A reminder to both you guys, each segment, besides cross-examination, is going to be 5 minutes long. At the 1 minute remaining mark, I will basically tell you, like, hey, you got 1 minute left to continue. If you do go over time, I'll basically tell you just wrap it up, whatever your statement is. But please be cognizant and considerate of your time. Whenever you start speaking, Brogy, I will start your timer.
All right, first off, I wanted to say thank you so much, Sola, for hosting the debate. Thank you so much, Daniel, for participating. My last debate did not go as well. So with that, I'll just get right started. When it comes to private property, there really is no reason to have private property other than your own selfish reasons. It doesn't help the economy, as over 50% of new businesses will fail, according to UC funding, which causes a negative impact in the economy. It increases the homeless population as it increases the wage disparity between the rich and the poor. It makes for a dumber general populace as less people are able to afford to get higher education, as well as decreases the overall health of the general populace. That's according to humanosphere.org. As less people are willing to go to the doctor in fear of going bankrupt due to the medical bills. Through focusing on the general needs of the public rather than having profit be the main incentive, companies and individuals are still able to gain wealth while making a positive impact on society. They can create businesses that help the public needs, such as creating affordable housing. They can still invest in public stock, or they can still go the general route of getting a high-paying job, such as being a doctor. According to MIT, the total amount of government spending on bailouts in 2008 was around $498 billion. By eliminating private property, it will result in less money spent on government bailouts, which could be used to pay for better welfare programs and higher education while not increasing the current tax rate. Through eliminating private property rights, when it comes to healthcare, America could probably decrease the amount it actually spends on healthcare per year, and that is according to commonwealthfund.org. America spends a significant amount more on healthcare per person, yet performs worse on measures of health comparatively to similar large and wealthy countries, such as almost any country in Europe. Overall, it seems like if we want a better economy, a more educated populace, a healthier populace, and just a general better society, we should get rid of private property rights and focus more on the needs of the public. And with that, I yield my time.
All right, appreciate that very much. Same goes for you, Donican. And whenever you're ready, you just start speaking, and I'll start your timer.
All right, so this is cross-examination now, right? Or do I give my speech?
Opening
and
This is
statement.
your opening.
Okay.
Yeah, opening.
All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I rise today to challenge the resolution that the needs of the public ought to be valued above private property rights. While I acknowledge the essential role of the public in society, I must emphasize the paramount importance of respecting private property rights as a cornerstone of our democracy and market economy. The first contention I raise is the promotion of individual liberty. The United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights clearly articulates in Article 17 that everyone has the right to own property and that no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of their property. This right is not just a mere detail, it forms the foundation of personal autonomy and self-determination. Private property rights also ensure a system of checks and balances against the potential overreach of government power. The second argument revolves around the essential role private property rights play in fostering economic growth. Private property rights encourage investment in entrepreneurship. A 2017 study by Harvard economist Andre Schleifer shows that countries with more secure private property rights have significantly higher income levels. By prioritizing public needs over these rights, we risk undermining the economy's dynamism and potential for growth. My third point pertains to social stability. Stable property rights serve as the bedrock of peaceful and orderly societies. They reduce potential conflicts over resources and provide a predictable environment in which people can plan and carry out their lives. Stripping people of their private property rights creates uncertainty and can lead to social unrest. It is also worth considering the risk of abuse when public needs are prioritized over private property rights. It's a slippery slope, opening the door for the potential misuse of power. We've seen in history, such as during the Cultural Revolution in China or the forced collectivization in the Soviet Union, that such policies can lead to human rights abuses, economic devastation, and societal chaos. In conclusion, while it is important to ensure that the needs of the public are met, it should not come at the expense of private property rights. Instead, we should strive to strike a balance between public interest and private property rights, recognizing the crucial role each plays in a vibrant, healthy, and prosperous society. By maintaining this balance, we uphold the values of freedom, economic prosperity, social stability, and fairness that underpin our society. And I concede the rest of my time.
All right, thank you very much. Now we're going to be going into rebuttals. Whenever you're ready, Brogy, go ahead. It'll be your portion of time. Hey, Brogy, you there?
Yep, sorry, I just forgot to hit the fucking unmute button.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
So there's a few things that I think are kind of easy to rebuttal here, which one of them would be the economic growth. The reason being is because you still have places such as Russia that do not have private property rights, yet their economy is fairly similar to America's with a lot smaller population size. It's you say that it's a cornerstone of democracy. Yeah, as we can see, there's a bunch of countries out there that have a democracy, yet still have affordable housing, are able to have universal health care. And so I don't necessarily believe private property rights are needed in order to have a democracy. You say higher income levels. But with that, it kind of also does the exact opposite, making a lot more people poor. There's no balance on consumer rights. So basically, it's a lot more difficult for people to get a equal or if I can speak, hold on. It's a lot more difficult for people to get a living wage, as businesses who own the private properties are able to charge whatever they want for the labor. You say economic devastation. Again, I just go right back to Russia with that. They their economy is almost similar to America. It's slightly worse, but again, they have a lot smaller population. Um, you say uncertainty and unrest. Places such as Japan aren't able to. Uh, they don't have private property. They have, or when it comes to housing, they don't have private property. They actually lease their property from the government, and it allows everybody to be able to have a house. Trying to think of other things. Uh, I think that's all I can think of right now, so I'll yield the rest of my time.
Okay, sounds good. Bouncing it back to you, Danikin. Whenever you're ready, same rules apply.
Okay, so this is cross-examination now, right?
Yeah, this is your
It's
rebuttal.
rebuttal.
Yeah.
It's a rebuttal to
That's
my
your
opening
cross-
statement.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So I'll start off at the top of the flow. I'm going to address some of the arguments that the affirmative made in his case in his first speech, and then I'm going to move on to address the arguments that he made against my speech. So starting off with his speech, his first argument was that private property rights are inherently selfish, and they basically encourage people to not use their wealth to contribute to the needs of the public. And my response to this is actually a turn, and private property rights prevents selfish leaders. Because when individuals in a society have the ability to dictate what happens with their labor, what happens with their money, what happens with their property, they are able to protect themselves and their family from leaders who may be using the guise of public needs to actually serve themselves, such as in the instance of China, which I brought up in my case, the Cultural Revolution for China, as well as the forced collectivization in the Soviet Union. And then this is also very common throughout history. There's a narrative to where the bureaucracy and the government is claiming that there is a need for a war, and because of that, they use that war as an excuse to undermine the private property rights of their country's citizens. And as a result, the quality of life of the citizens goes down, while the economic growth of the country might appear to be going up. And I believe this is happening right now in Russia, where Russia is engaging in war in Ukraine. However, the lives and quality of lives of the Russian citizens are not seeing any benefits from this war, and they actually have a underperforming quality of life. And now I'm not taking a pro or con stance under the war of Ukraine. All I'm saying is that the undervaluing of private property rights in that instance is leading to decrease in the quality of life of its citizens. Okay, I'm going to move on to a few more of my opponent's arguments. He basically said that private property rights decreases the health of the populace. You can tag my argument to this as not topical, because I don't see how private property rights decreases the health of the populace when inherently somebody's health and somebody's labor and somebody's ability to manage their resources reflects their health. It reflects their quality of life, because health is not just about the immediate health. The way that you measure the health and quality of life of a society is not just by measuring how many people are sick. It's by measuring how many people are thriving and flourishing in the community. And we can see through the evidence that I cited in my case, such as the study by the Harvard economist, which shows that countries with more secure private property rights have significantly higher income levels, that private property rights actually contributes to the overall health of the populace beyond just the immediate sickness aspect or public health aspect. And then I'm going to move on to some of the arguments that he made against my case. He basically said against my argument of economic growth, he said Russia has a similar economy to the U.S., Therefore, private property rights are not correlated to economic growth. Once again, I'd just like to cross-apply that study that was conducted in 2017 by the Harvard economist, which shows that countries with more secure private property rights have significantly higher income levels. If you guys need more details on that study, I can pull it up. But my point is, even though there are some countries, individual countries, which appear to have a more thriving economy, while they have socialist policies, that does not translate to increased quality of life of their citizens, as well as that also does not disprove the hundreds of other countries that are attempting the same kind of policies but not having economic growth, which might be just because of the amount of resources that are just inherent in the country. For instance, Russia has a lot of oil, and a lot of Russia's economy stems from that oil industry. And in many other countries, this is simply not possible because they don't have those kinds of natural resources. So instead, they must rely on other things such as technological innovation and individual entrepreneurship, which requires an emphasis on private property rights. And then in response to my application about social stability, he was basically saying that private property rights harms labor or harms the value
Go
of
ahead,
labor.
wrap it up. Make this one your last statement
Okay.
or last point.
Basically, I'm going to just make one last point and tie it all together. I just want to say that my contention as the negative today is not that private property rights need to be held above needs of the public in every situation. It's just that needs of the public needs to be valued with private property rights in kind of a balance, which is my position as the negative. And I believe that my case and my contentions uphold this point, which is why I urge you to vote negative. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Now we're going over to cross-examination. This section, you'll have a lot more time. I'll just let you know when to wrap it up. It's roughly around 5-10 minutes, depending how it goes. So, Rosie, whenever you're ready, feel free to start, asking Danikin questions about his position or point of view.
Yep, I really only have three major questions, but I think they are really impactful, especially with your rebuttal statements. The first one being, how do you propose in America specifically, because we are a profit-driven society, how do you propose that we reduce waste on resources, as America is number 3 in the world for the most waste produced?
So you're asking how do I? Well, okay. Here's how I think that America can decrease waste and resources: is we can create incentives for companies and individuals to, like financial incentives to decrease waste. Are you talking about a specific kind of waste?
Mainly natural resources, but I mean, when it comes to reduce, or when what I'm mainly talking about is companies will end up making products that we don't need. We have too much of, because there is such a profit incentive in creating these things that it ends up being an overproduction of, again, useless things that aren't benefiting anyone but the person creating these items.
I think that everybody in America has the right to purchase whatever they desire to purchase, and if there is a product which might not be good for them, might not be healthy for them, might not be healthy for the countries of society, it's the right of the individual people to determine what they use their private property rights on, and I don't think that the government should infringe in that. I don't know if that answers your question.
Not fully. So what I'm mainly trying to get at is, we throw a lot of things away that we don't need to. If we were to focus more on the general needs of people, we could limit the production of certain items, making it so that way then, instead of making 100 of something when all we need is 20, maybe instead we make 25 and just reduce the waste on whatever it is.
Uh,
That
I
was
mean,
more of a statement, not really a question. But
okay, yeah,
if
I'm
you
not.
if you have a response to that.
Well, my response to that would just be, um, the means don't justify the ends. So taking away the private property rights and the ability of people to determine how much of something that they want to make or what way they make that item doesn't justify taking away their private property rights. Does that make sense?
Kinda. My second question is, how do you propose that we get rid of the wage disparity? Through my research, I've kind of seen that the biggest cause of poverty are health and education. In countries where these issues are met, the disparity for poor and rich is a lot lower. So how do we get rid of the um, giant wage disparity that we see in America?
I think uh I think based on the way that our country was founded, um, we need to keep that foundation of private property rights. We need to keep people incentivized to keep going out there and working hard and uh, furthering that American work ethic. But I think a good way to start is to get rid of a lot of taxes and get rid of the very high federal income tax that we currently have to allow people to actually keep their money and use that money towards their needs. But first, start with that foundation of private property rights by abolishing a lot of those taxes.
Even if you were to get rid of the taxes, the you'd still need to pay these people a livable wage. So something that would cause them to actually to make people be able to invest in their own communities.
Sure.
Um,
So that would just be another side of the coin with valuing private property rights would be to put more value on the private property of individuals, that is labor. If people are to put more emphasis, if the government was to put more emphasis on protecting the private property right of labor, because somebody's labor is their private property, and increase the value of that labor, then they would be able to make sure that those people have a livable wage.
if you with a profit-driven society, companies that are able to pay somebody less to do something, such as uh, moving their company over to China, where they're able to pay people a lot less than in America. Um, I mean, that's basically what you're incentivizing when you incentivize private property over the needs of the public. You're making it so that way then companies are able to pay people a lot less than what they're actually worth. And if they have to pay a certain wage, they're just going to move over to China instead of helping out the communities in which the companies are in.
Okay. I mean, if the company, so I agree that there will be some instances where when you require a minimum livable wage, the companies will move to China. But I really think that if you strike a balance between lowering taxes for those companies as well, so that the companies are incentivized to stay here, as well as require that minimum livable wage, the amount of companies that would stay as opposed to leave will be significant enough to still bolster the American economy.
Okay. And then
Go ahead. Last one.
my last question, which I'm pretty sure it's going to be around the same answer. How do you propose that we get rid of homelessness in a country where profit is heavily incentivized? According to Statista, Russia's homeless population is 11.3 thousand in 2021 compared to America, which has over 500,000.
So, to be honest, I really think that the homelessness issue is not so much an issue with economic policy. It's more of an issue with culture. It's more of an issue to where uh, churches are not equipped to be able to help homeless people and get them to a point to where they're able to be successful and to where they have the right mindset going into do the workplace, to where they are not just self-serving, but they also want to serve their community. I think that uh, first, homelessness is a culture issue first, and then there may be some policy changes that could help with homelessness, such as getting them affordable housing. But before you solve that initial culture issue, they're not even going to want to go and stay in the housing. They would just rather be on the street doing drugs.
I just want to point out that with having affordable housing, you're already getting rid of private property rights because you're not allowing the people who own the private property to charge whatever they want.
So once again, my contention is not that in every instance private property rights needs to be held above needs of the public. It's just that as there needs to be a balance. I just don't think that needs of the public should always be upheld over private property rights, because private property rights are the foundation.
All right,
Because
sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to finish up, and we're gonna flip over to you.
That's all.
All right. Same format this time. What's it? Brogy's in the hot seat, and Danikin's gonna be throwing some questions. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Okay, so in your affirmative case, you were arguing that private property decreases economic growth. So I just wanted to hear where you're coming from with that argument, and just get a better grasp on what you're trying to say, because I'm not sure I understood that argument.
So the big point that I'm trying to make is that every single time a company fails, it negatively impacts the economy. Well over 50% of the businesses that get created end up failing. So through all of these negatively impacted, or through all of these companies failing, that's negatively impacting the economy.
So what's the link there to private property rights?
The link there is the fact that, hold on, where was it? Basically, private property is allowing people to create jobs that aren't needed. If we get rid of private property rights, it makes it so people are more thoughtful and more understanding of what the company needs, what the consumer needs, and makes it so that way that it's a lot less likely to have failing businesses.
So are you advocating? Correct me if I'm wrong, but are you advocating that instead of having a society where people and companies can decide what products they want to make and sell, we have a society where the government is telling them what the public actually needs and what they should be making?
More or less. Basically, I'm saying that instead of creating a 15th technology driven, or so like instead of making a new social media platform, someone is creating a business which creates houses. So instead of wasting time, energy, and money on creating useless products, we focus more on products that benefit society.
Okay. So what would you say is the leading factor that is discouraging the foundation of new housing companies? Just if you have
The fact that there's less profit,
less profit.
less incentive for profit.
So why is there less incentive for profit?
Because people are able to charge whatever they want for houses. I mean, take right now, for example, we're in a, what's it called, a seller's market where people are trying to sell off businesses, but no one wants to buy them, making it so that way then houses are a lot more expensive than they need to be, and it's a lot more difficult to buy houses.
Would you agree that environmental regulations and federal regulations are a major stopping point for major privatized infrastructure projects?
I'm not 100% sure. Uh, when it comes to private property, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're able to set the market at whatever it is you want. So if I want to sell a house for 150,000, that's completely up to me. Where, I mean, am I wrong there?
So that's so you're talking about pre-existing houses. I thought we were talking about, based on your previous argument, the new businesses, because you're talking about how there's no profit incentive for new housing businesses because as opposed to social media. So my question was, what is the major hindrance that's causing those housing businesses to not be profitable? And then I went on to ask if you agreed that regulations played a major role in that.
So To my knowledge, if you're actually able to sell a house, there's a lot of profit in there. But because the prices are so high, like even with building new infrastructure, um, because prices are so high, it makes it a lot less, or it makes it a lot more difficult for people to be able to buy. Does that answer the question?
Kind of, but I think we can move on. So let me. So as far as your first rebuttal speech, you were talking about how Russia has a similar economy to the United
Yep.
States. Uh, my only question is, do you believe that economics are a telling factor to the success of a country in terms of the quality of life of its people?
Not quite. Obviously, there's a bunch of different things in play. Economy is a big factor, but it's also the regulations that do play a part, such as in America, we do have freedom of speech, whereas in Russia, freedom of speech could get you killed.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, um, as far as Japan, you were talking about how, in response to my fourth application, you were talking about Japan. Could you reiterate that argument a bit?
So basically,
Information on
in
Japan.
Japan, nobody actually owns the property they live in.
Okay.
The government owns it. You just rent it from, or you lease it from the government for, I believe it's like 99 years or something like that.
Would you agree that Japan has the highest suicide rate among men?
Yes, but that goes, I'd say that's more along with the overall stigmatization of what it is to be a man there. They have a lot, their culture is a lot different, whereas in America, like I said, freedom of speech. We have the right to act however we want to an extent, obviously. Whereas Japan is a little bit more strict in their culture. You have, I mean, take even Asia, for example. You have kids who can get punished just for getting a B.
Okay. Would you agree that, let's see. Would you agree that that ownership and uh, control of property is a positive experience to being a man? Does that make sense?
I
Like, what?
think so, and I would honestly say no.
Mhm.
I rent my apartment, but that doesn't make me any less of a man.
But don't you want to own it? Wouldn't you
I
want to own that
honestly
apartment?
not really, because at least by renting it, it makes it so that I'm forced to keep the place up to a certain standard. Whereas we see how people, especially in America, treat their own private property. You have trucks that get absolutely demolished throughout the years. You have houses that turn into absolute hellholes because people own them and they just stop taking care of them. Whereas when you rent, you are forced to, otherwise, you have to pay a fee. You have to pay for repairs, cleaning, all of that stuff. So
Okay.
there's
That
more
leads
of
that
an
leads me to my
incentive.
next question. Do you believe that it's healthy to have a society where responsibility is outsourced beyond the individual?
What do you mean by that?
So let's say that, so like Japan, for example,
Hmm.
is it healthy to have a society such as Japan where if there was no government, people would have no incentive to be responsible and good humans?
I mean, that's kind of what we have in America, isn't it?
But do you think that's healthy?
No. I would much rather have people be f- coerced, for lack of a better word, to act a certain way, to treat everybody with respect. Whereas in America, we have the freedom to, like, no, I can go outside right now and scream the N word, and there is no legal repercussions. That
Mhm.
type of society should not be incentivized.
Okay. And I think that's all for my questions.
All right, sounds good. Now, next portion we're going to be doing is just rebuttal responses, which is telling the audience what you thought so far of what your opponents were saying. Brogy, you're going to be going first, and then following up by Donican. And after that, we're doing closing. So whenever you're ready, Brogy.
Yep. So one thing I do want to point out is that you said having private property prevents selfish leaders, such as in China. China may call itself a democracy, but we all know that it really isn't. The chances of the leadership in China changing is slim to none, unless there's a giant revolution. You say that the quality of life goes down. I actually beg to differ there. Again, you have Europe, which has a lot less private property than America, but their quality of life is pretty close to on par with America. You say that, man, I don't remember exactly what you said was not topical. You said the healthcare was not topical to this. My main source or my main example for this is insulin prices. In America, we have three companies that control the price of insulin, making it almost impossible for people to actually afford insulin until this new bill came into place, which caps it at $35. Whereas in places such as Germany uh, and other European countries, they have insulin charged for $6, and that still allows the manufacturers to still make a small profit. I'm sure this goes along with other drug prices, just insulin being the biggest one. Um, you say private property allows for higher wages. Yes, it does allow for higher wages, but it also allows for lower wages as well, as it makes it so that way then instead of people uh, or people being incentivized to invest in their own communities, which the company is built in, it makes it so that way then, okay, if I'm able to uh, hire these people at $12 an hour, I'm going to do that, which makes it so that way then their quality of life is decreased immensely. And then, I'm sorry, do we go into our closing statements as well with this, or?
Sola?
Statements of words.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said closing statements will be afterwards, and that'll just
Oh,
be
okay.
you wrapping up your whole
Okay.
position.
In that case, I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, sounds good. Donican, whenever you're ready, we'll start you.
All right, give me 1 second, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Whenever you start speaking, I'll start your timer.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right, I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, so I'd like to start my speech with a quote by John Locke. It says, "The reason why men enter into society is for the protection of their property." With that context and with that in mind, I would like to enter into some arguments. I'm going to start at the top of the flow, and I'm going to address arguments that have stemmed from the affirmative case, and then I'm going to move on to arguments that have stemmed from my case on the negative. So first off, my opponent said in his last speech that China is not a democracy. Therefore, my argument that China is a reflection of how private property rights are leading to economic growth is false. I like to say that although China is not at all a democracy, they are leaning towards a private property centric economy, free market economy, and this has led them to tremendous economic growth through allowing their individual citizens to have more personal incentive on a free market basis. Okay, then moving on to the next argument, he basically said that it's the economic growth argument. He said that Europe has less private property rights than America, and it has a better economy. And it's leading to they have a thriving economy and quality of life with their citizens. I like to say that this is a hasty generalization. There are many countries in Europe where private property rights are not upheld, and there are negative benefits, but we can't speak on. We need to speak based on facts, and the facts of the debate so far, which have gone uncontested, are this 2017 study, which shows that private property rights, countries with private property rights have, on average, significantly higher income levels. So this also contradicts his other argument, which was saying that corporations are going to be incentivized to not pay their people fairly when the corporation's private property rights are upheld. Once again, this is not reflected in the real world. 2017, which is fairly recent, this study shows that countries with more secure private property rights have significantly higher income levels. And then moving on to his last argument, he brought up insulin, and he was talking about how when you uphold needs of the public, or when you uphold private property rights, it allows corporations to charge whatever they want for their products. My response to this is cost plus drugs. Cost plus drugs. So Mark Cuban recently founded a company called Cost Plus Drugs, which is incentivized by the free market economy to basically go out and find the cheapest sources of these drugs and sell them to people at as affordable prices as possible without any government involvement. Because he's been making a huge profit off of this, just because many people are no longer going to those super expensive companies, pharmaceutical companies, which have a tight grip on those prices, and instead they're going to cost plus drugs, where they are able to find what they need at affordable prices. And then I'd like to move on to my case. I'd like to say that there's been several arguments that have not really been addressed till the end of the debate. For example, I brought up the Soviet Union. Basically, in the Soviet Union, the upholding public needs over private property rights led to many human rights abuses, economic devastation, and societal chaos. And that's reflective of the fact that public needs are subjective. When you have a governmental body that's determining what or what not to uphold above the individual rights of its citizens, then chaos ensues, because it doesn't take long for a leader to come along that decides that they want to enter into a war for their own personal economical advantage at the expense of their people. And let's see, is there anything else? I guess I can just reiterate a couple more of my arguments that I had made. Just basically, private property rights are
the... You're at like 20 seconds right now. You want to save it till closing?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I can see that.
Rosie. Yeah, thank you. Rosie, go ahead, and then we're going to go back over to Danikin afterwards. Closing argument is basically just you telling the audience, like, hey, this is the arguments, the points I made. This is why you should favor my side for a debate.
All right, so again, overall, I think that we need to prioritize the needs of the people over private property. The big things that kind of make it so that way, then my position is more, or that you should lean more towards my position, is some of the arguments that Danikin ended up making, such as, what'd you say? I think you said Mark Zuckerberg created the cost plus drugs instead of incentivizing profits. He incentivized making it so that way then drugs were a lot more accessible. If the government were to do this, it'd bring down the cost of all drugs, making it so that way then people can't charge an arm and a leg for something. Also, if we want to have a more educated populace, we need to start making school more I can't think of the word. We have to start making schools more affordable, which would get rid of private property, making it so that way then, instead of colleges being able to charge whatever they want thousands of dollars for a degree. The government ends up paying for it, as we see in European countries. They seem to be a lot more educated because they allow more people to be able to go on to secondary schooling. If we want a healthier populace, we need to start getting rid of privatized healthcare, making it so that way then people don't go bankrupt for having to just go see a doctor for a routine visit. It'd make everybody a lot healthier and make it so that way then people are more incentivized and more willing to go to the doctor. And again, if we just want an overall better society, making it so that way then we prioritize profits over the needs of the people just leads for an overall more chaotic uh, society. We see this with the wage gap and how so many people end up going poor or hungry, whereas the top 1% have billions of dollars that they're never going to spend in their lifetime. Um, and that's why I think that my position is the right choice. And with that, I yield my time.
All right, thank you very much. And wrapping it all up, whenever you're ready, Donkin, send us home.
All right, 1 second. All right, I'm going to start off with another quote by John Locke. All people have the natural rights of life, liberty, and property. Government is to protect these, not overthrow them. So with this context, I'm going to jump right into some arguments. Basically, my opponent, he did not respond to my response to the China argument about how China was able to achieve tremendous economic growth through a free market economy. And then once again, he did not respond to my argument where I basically said that saying that Europe has less private property rights, and that has, as a result, led to them having a better economy. That's a hasty generalization. And I cited my 2017 study, which you guys probably don't want me to hear. Probably don't want to hear that again. And then he brought up cost plus drugs, and it's Mark Cuban, not Mark Zuckerberg. But
Oh, my bad.
it's okay. He was saying that if the government was to do this for all medications, that it would have tremendous benefits because then all medications would be affordable for people. Now, my response to this is if the government was to do this and to command all companies to lower the prices for their medicines, then it contradicts his other point that he brought up earlier, where there would about incentives, and there would no longer be an incentive for these companies to develop new and effective medications for people. And as a result, the economy and economic growth and the quality of life of people would come to a standstill. The reason why America has thrived in its free market economy is because of the fact that innovation is promoted. Innovation is promoted by prioritizing by prioritizing private property rights over the needs of the public. And then once again, it is not my contention that in every instance, private property rights need to be valued above needs of the public. It's just 51% of the time. Private property rights need to be the foundation, because if they are not, then you get governmental bodies which have the ability to overrule the rights of their citizens and create economic turmoil and unjust situations, such as I brought up with the Soviet Union and the revolution in China, which is a different era of China than I brought up earlier, not to get confused. And then once again, my opponent did not respond at all to my case and the arguments from my case in his last speech. So I just would like to reiterate that. And I really strongly feel that most of those arguments still stand because of that fact. And I really want to leave you guys with the notion that in order to have a society where people are healthily growing the economy in a way that's going to be sustainable, there must be private property rights upheld first. In order to have taxes, there must first be private property rights. In order to have laws exist to protect property. In order to have just compensation for labor, it requires first a value of private property rights. Therefore, the logic follows that needs of the public are fulfilled eventually when first private property rights are upheld. My opponent hasn't brought up any instances where private property rights are upheld, and as a result, there is injustice. He did bring up affordable healthcare. He did bring up affordable healthcare, and he did bring up the wage gap, and I'd like to address those. As far as the wage gap, my opponent was saying that if the government was to step in and basically mandate that, basically ensure that people are making similar amounts of money, that it would have a benefit for the needs of the public, I disagree. Even though there is a tremendous wage gap and the 1% are thriving much more than most of the people in America, this does not reflect needs of the public being more important than private property rights. This just reveals a corrupt system which has valued not the needs of the public or private property rights, but instead the individual desires of corporations for political incentive, which violates private property rights of citizens through unjust laws and through just basically not upholding the government's end of the social contract.
All right.
For all these reasons, I would like to concede my time and I urge you to vote negative.
All right. Good job, guys, to you both. That was a really phenomenal debate. I appreciate it. To the audience, one more time, if anyone's interested in getting on the stage or trying their luck, feel free to contact me in my account at Solar Requiem. But one more time, big round of applause for both Brogy and Donican for participating in this debate and getting this far in the tournament. You guys did really good. Okay. Yeah, with that will conclude our debate today. So thank you very much for tuning in and listening.